Hi everyone, my name is Monique.
And I'm Naveen from Before You Play.
And today we're going to be showing you how to play a game that is coming to Kickstarter called Scandaloh.
This one's designed by Ron Gonzalo García and published by Megacorpin. It's a 1 to 6 player deduction game in which we're going to be using our wits to solve a scandal about a certain celebrity.
That's right. And so you might be familiar with this publisher from their previous game called Awkward Guests, which uses a very similar brilliant deck system that you'll be seeing in this game as well.
Right.
And if you played that game before, then you're fully aware that that game kind of brings deduction to a new level, which is also what you're going to be seeing in this game.
Totally.
And so today we're going to be showcasing a partial playthrough of sorts, just so you have an idea as to what to expect. But before we begin, we do want to mention that this is still considered a prototype copy of the game, which means things are subject to change in the final copy.
Now, if you are interested in this game, there is going to be a link to the campaign down below. It'll be in the description box. Also, if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing.
And with that, I think we're ready to begin. So, if you please direct your attention to the center of the table, we're all set up here for a 2-player game of Scandaloh. We have our player sheets. We also have the inquiry board, which we're going to be using to kind of ask each other for clues.
Yes.
What's not seen here is each player also has their own player screen, which we're not going to be showcasing on camera right now because it's not really that necessary at the moment.
Right.
And so like Naveen was mentioning, in this game, we're trying to solve a scandal. And so there are 3 pieces of information that we're trying to find in order to win this game.
It's going to be what the story is, so it's one of 16 different options. Who did it, which celebrity, one of 5 options, and which paper is going to be reporting on it, which is one of 4 options.
Yes.
So many options.
And so these solutions are all reflected on our player paper here. So if you're just going to take a quick look at this player sheet, the sheet is divided into 3 different sections. And those sections are the potential solutions to the case. So up here, we have all 16 different stories that we could potentially be reporting on as journalists, right? In the middle here, we have all of the different contacts as well as the 5 different celebrities who are going to be at the center of this story.
Yep.
So all of the celebrities are colored, and their names all start with vowels, and the contacts that they're connected to all start with consonants. And that's going to be very important for when we start asking each other for clues.
Yep.
And at the bottom here, we have the 4 different papers that are willing to publish this story, but not all of them are going to be willing to publish specific stories or cover specific celebrities, as we will soon find out.
Yep.
And so the way the game works is it uses this brilliant deck system. And so the game comes with 250 of these cards. It's a large deck, and they're all numbered at the top left-hand corner here. Depending on the specific case, before you start the game, you have to pull out the specific numbers of cards that pertain to that case. And so the cases are also labeled in different difficulty levels. You have the introductory cases all the way to difficult, I suppose, and those ones get really difficult.
Really hard.
And so essentially, these cards are going to be clues that kind of point you in the right direction, that help you determine which stories, which celebrities, and which newspaper is connected to this scandal. And so today, we're going to be showcasing an introductory scenario that was recommended by the publisher. We have the entire deck here that we pulled out all the cards
We've
for.
seeded it, yep.
And we're going to showcase a 2-player game. The 2-player variant is slightly different from the higher player count game. And so in order to do this, we're going to be showcasing one of our papers here and kind of walk you through some of the deduction in different points of the game.
And also the thought process as to what you're deducing.
Yes, exactly. And so the first thing that we have to do before we start this game is we need to shuffle this deck. So can you go ahead and give that a quick shuffle?
Sure, let's do it. Okay, deck is shuffled, and each player is going to receive 7 cards total.
Yes, and these are going to be our starting clues to kind of just give us something to go off of at the beginning of the game.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go ahead and showcase my cards over here. Naveen is just going to pretend to not hear any of my information so that he doesn't use it to, to his advantage.
Yes.
So we're going to go through my cards one at a time in order from stories to contacts to newspaper, just so you have a little bit of a sense of flow here. And so my first card looks like this. I just want to kind of tell you the anatomy of a card really quick, just so it makes more sense when we start actually getting into the game. In the middle here is going to be the information that you need to cross off on your paper, right? Just so you have a sense of where to go in this case. The top left-hand corner here will show you a value, and it's going to be either a 1 or a 2. This is going to come into play when we start getting into the game and asking each other for clues, which you'll see in a second.
Right.
And the top right-hand corner here shows symbols that kind of give you a quick glance that will help you also when you're asking each other for clues. This one specifically shows a location. Just so you know, there are 5 different locations on the inquiry board here. This has nothing really to do with the stuff that you're going to be writing down on your paper. It more so has to do with the information that you'll find at those locations. And so all of this is kind of shown on the player aid here. These are the 5 different locations that you'll see and who you'll find there, as well as what stories you'll find there. And so we're going to touch upon that again later when we start asking each other for clues. Now, let's talk about the actual card. This is a very straightforward story card that basically tells us that in this case, this is not the story. That is just not the answer. And so if you get a card like this, you're going to look for that story out of these 16 up here, and you're just going to cross it off. So this is story number 15, and they're all numbered here in really tiny numbers. So I'm just going to go ahead and cross this off because it's not the answer that we're going to be looking for. Similarly, I have another card that just tells us it's not that story. So we're crossing off some stories here. So now we have 14 to choose from. My next card has to do with one of the contacts that are in this area. So if you look closely, each story has these 3 symbols that are connected to them, and they're called resources. So out of the entire deck of cards that we have here, each of the 3 resources connected to the story are going to be represented twice. You're going to have a 1 and a 2 card in that deck. These resources are provided by the contacts. And so if you look closely at the contacts, on the right-hand side here are 3 different resources that they could potentially be contributing to the story. So this card here is just telling me that Norbert Newley over here is not contributing that resource. So it's not that helpful right now, but as we progress through the game, it might be helpful in determining which story it is or which contact is connected to the story, which maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense right now, but it will later. The next card I have here is another contact like card, and this has to do with a certain newspaper. So that is a symbol for the Liberty Gazette. And so these 2 contacts are represented by just their pictures here. This is Jerry Getty. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to circle that newspaper symbol on the left-hand side here. The more of these newspapers that are interested in these contacts makes them a more reliable contact. And so that'll also make more sense as we progress through the game. But for now, we're just going to take a note of that information. So this is Leslie Lawson over here. So we have 2 contacts who are already backed by a certain newspaper. The next card over here is another contact card, and so this is a big one. We're going to be doing a lot of this during the game. This basically tells me that Jill Jarrett, who is over here, is not connected to Owen Orlowski, who is one of our 5 celebrities, one of the 5 celebrities that may potentially be one of the solutions, right? And so this is basically telling us that this connection over here between them is severed. And so as we go throughout the game, we're going to be seeing which contacts are connected to the celebrities. And anytime we have a tie, a sever between the 2, that breaks up that connection. So we know that this person is not going to be in any way connected to Owen Orlowski. Our second to last card over here is another contact card, and this has to do with good old Fred, who is one of our contacts. And this is another one of those resource canceling cards, I suppose, just like Norbert over here. And this tells us that Fred is not contributing this skull resource. And finally, our 7th card is a newspaper card. And this is telling us that the Liberty Gazette and the Chronicle, these 2 newspapers, are not interested in publishing a story on Ike Intelman, who's one of our celebrities. So this is significant because if the Liberty Gazette or the Chronicle end up being the newspaper solution in this case, then we'll know that Ike Intelman is not the celebrity because they're not willing to publish a story on this person. So we don't know if either of them are the solution right now. So this is just kind of starting information, right? And those are all of my cards. I believe Naveen has probably written down all of his clues.
I have, yes.
Yes, so now we are ready to start the game.
Okay.
We have a little bit of information, not a whole lot, but we're going to gather some more. So the way that the game works is the game is played over the course of several rounds. You know, the game ends once somebody has figured out the solution, just like that.
Yep.
And so starting with the first player, who's going to be me today, each player's turn consists of 3 different phases, starting with the inquiry phase. So during the inquiry phase, I'm going to ask a Naveen in a 2-player game, but really in higher player counts, you're asking the entire table of opponents here.
Right.
And I'm going to be asking them for certain pieces of information. And these are all symbolized on the inquiry board here. These are all the possibilities of things that you can ask for.
Right.
And so looking at this board over here, you can ask about any of the contacts who are the people contributing resources to the story and are potentially connected to the celebrities. The contacts are very multifaceted. You can also ask about any of the 4 different newspapers. You can ask about all 5 of the celebrities in question, as well as all 5 of these locations. And again, like I was mentioning earlier, the significance of the locations is just in the different resources or stories or the context that you'll find there.
Yeah, it's more of a grab bag of things.
Yes, it's like a grab bag, exactly, just to increase your possibility of getting certain pieces of information. Since I know a little bit about these two newspapers, maybe I will go ahead and start off by inquiring about the Global Sentinel. I know nothing about that newspaper.
Okay.
And then just to kind of increase my likelihood of finding out more, I'm going to ask about two different locations. Let's go with the money location. Okay. And I'm assuming this is the harbor. I don't quite remember the names of the locations off the top of my head.
Anchor. Okay.
Yes, and so these are the three different symbols that you're going to look for at the top right-hand corner of these cards. And so now Naveen is going to look through his hand of cards, and basically the only rule is each piece of information that he gives me has to relate in some way or form to one of the three things that I asked for. Yep. And then he's going to give me the cumulative value shown at the top left-hand corner, basically the sum of all the numbers on those cards, and he's going to give me an offer. And you want to go ahead and give me an offer?
I do have an offer. So this is going to encompass 3 different cards, and it's a total offer of 4. 2, 3, 4. Yes. And this encompasses that harbor she was asking about. It has that newspaper she was asking about, as well as this money symbol or kind of the financial district right there. So this would typically be done face down, and all the other opponents would also be competing for the same information.
And at this point, I would now look at my hand and give him a cumulative value of minimum 4 as well in cards. Mm-hmm. And these cards that I give him do not have to have anything to do with what I asked for.
Right.
They just have to be at least an even exchange. And at higher player counts, you can do this exchange with several people. Mm-hmm. You just can't exchange with one person and then use the cards that you gained in that exchange to exchange with someone else.
Right.
They all have to come from your original 7 cards. So I'm going to go ahead and give you these 3 cards that add up to a value of 4 as well.
I'll take it.
So I'm going to go ahead and give that to you. And then at this point, you would look at your newly acquired cards and take notes of them. In a 2-player game, all the cards that you exchange go face up because now we both know this information, right?
Exactly.
So I'm just going to go ahead and put this face up and talk about it with you all. So these are the cards that I received from Naveen. And as you can see, we have our contact over here who is Tim Tax. Tim Tax is not contributing this fist resource. So I'm going to cross that off. And then these cards in a 2-player game get discarded out of the game. So I'm going to go ahead and put that up here. This next card is telling me that the Patriot Daily, as well as the Global Sentinel, are not interested in publishing a story about Uma Unwin over here. So now we know a little bit about all of our newspapers. So this goes out. And finally, this one says that Jill is not contributing that head resource, and Kate Keen, who's over here, is not contributing this like police hat resource. That's everything for me.
And I'm also doing the complete same thing on my side. I'm just trying to stay away from Monique.
And don't look at my paper.
I'm not looking, no.
Now, if none of the players around you were able to present you with an offer, then at that point, you're allowed to draw 3 new cards from the deck. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of a nice way to get more information that nobody else has. But
that didn't happen here.
That didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so now my turn is done. Now it's going to be Naveen's turn. And after Naveen's turn, then the round will end. So a round is consistent of once everybody is able to go once.
Yeah, everybody must inquire.
Mm-hmm. All right. What would you like?
Okay, so I would like to know more about this rat location. I would like to know about Patriot Daily. Okay. And also, I'd like to know if you know anything about Ed Enfield.
Ed Enfield?
Yes.
All right. Well, if you remember, these are the cards that I still have left in my hand, and the only card that is eligible to be offered up here is this one, because it has a rat symbol. I don't have the Patriot Daily star on any of my cards, neither do I have Ed Enfield's initial on any of these cards, so I'm not allowed to offer them up. So this is a card value of 2, so I'm going to give you 1 card with a card value of 2.
Okay, then I will give you equal 1 card of value of 2.
All right. Usually the value 2 card's a little bit more valuable, as you probably can tell. Yep. And so this is the card that Naveen gave us.
Interesting.
Okay, so we have Jerry Getty, who's not contributing the handshake resource, and Kate Keen, who's not contributing the hearts resource. So Kate Keen is not looking real good here for contributing resources. If she stays a contact in our case, then she will be contributing this like skirt resource. And if that were to be the case, then you would look up at the stories here and basically cross off all of the stories that don't have that skirt resource, if that makes sense. That's a partial way that you're going to be doing this deduction, by kind of double checking everything on your paper here. And now I'm thinking this isn't a skirt, and maybe they're curtains.
I think it's curtains. Yeah, it looks like curtains.
So, skirt, curtains, who can tell? All right.
You know, who could tell?
All right. So that's the end of the round.
Yes.
At this point, everybody discards their hand down to 3, and then we're going to draw up back to 7 from the rest of the deck.
Yep, there you go.
And the first player gets passed onwards. And Naveen will go first now.
Okay.
Thank you. And so we're going to go ahead and start by taking notes of our new cards, and then go for a new round. Ooh, we have some information about some newspapers, kind of, or I guess, no, actually it's just the contacts. So these 2 contacts are now being supported by the Global Sentinel. So we have Vivian Vance and we have Jerry Getty. Oh, this is interesting. So now Jerry is being sponsored or being noticed by 2 different newspapers. So this is increasing our likelihood that this person is going to be an actual contact who we're going to be referring to in this case. So we've taken note of this card, and the next one here is going to be crossing off the connection between Jill and Ike. So down here, they're not connected. That's that. Next one is Fred. Fred is not in any way connected to E, who's Ed, as well as I, who is Ike. Those are two different celebrities. So that's that. And then we're crossing off a connection between Kate and Vivian over here. So that connection has been severed. And we begin anew. We have a little bit more information now. I think our closest lead right now is this contact, because this contact is looking like a reliable contact. And so we're going to really want to focus in on this person. So go ahead, Naveen.
Time to inquire. Okay,
Yes.
So I'd like to know if you know anything about the Chronicle,
Okay.
the Liberty Gazette, and also this tree location.
The park?
The
I'm
park.
assuming it's a park.
Yeah.
By the way, before I present my offer, what we didn't go over in the last round is before we do that discard phase, each player has the opportunity to provide a solution if you think you have it. And so at that point, you would use your solution marker over here and do a happy face or an unhappy face. Unhappy face for everybody means we continue with the game, nobody guesses.
Right.
But if you present a happy face, that means I'm going to guess.
Yes.
And at that point, you would look at the solution. If you're wrong, all of your cards go face up for everybody to see and you're out of the game.
Yep.
But if you're correct, then you win. And there could be multiple people who win at that point. But that's essentially how the whole game works. And you essentially do this until somebody has found a solution. All right, so these 3 pieces of information.
The Chronicle, the Gazette, as well as the tree location.
All right, I have 1 card of value 1.
1 for 1.
Yes, and even though it's only 1 piece of information, I feel like it's in my best interest to give it to him so that it doesn't allow him to draw 3 cards,
That's right? Yes, that's right.
So.
Well, here's something. Okay.
I hope it's helpful. All right, this is telling us that Jill is not connected to celebrity A and celebrity I. So. Not super duper helpful, but still something.
I also feel the same way. 1 piece of information is better than no piece of information.
True.
Okay.
All right, so now it is our turn to ask. So since our closest lead, in my opinion, I guess, is Jetty over here, I'm going to ask a bunch of questions specifically as it relates to them. And so I'm just going to go ahead and ask about Jerry himself. Okay. He is letter G over here. I'm also going to probably ask, I want to know more information about that resource. And so that resource can be located, where is it? It's here, it's in the harbor. So I guess I'm going to ask about that anchor. And then, so that's this one over here. And then I'm just going to ask about a third kind of random piece of information. Let's just go with this location over here that has a rat on it. So Naveen, what can you give me?
I have 3 cards for you, and there's a total value of 6.
6. Wow.
Big data.
That is a lot. Well, I don't want to give you all these, so I guess I'll just give you these 3 as well.
Oh, okay. See some value. Okay.
Let's see what we have. That's exciting.
Some good stuff I gave you.
They're all the rat. Well, I guess it's better than nothing, right? I wanted more Jerry and Anchor, but we got the rat. So this is telling us one of the resources, one of the probable resources, since this is an introductory scenario, the likelihood of them giving us resources that are not part of the actual solution are probably pretty low. And so I think it's safe to say, since we have both the number 1 and the number 2 claim of that specific resource, this is probably going to be part of the actual case, right? So it is the skull resource. So I'm going to go over here and look for all of the stories that have that resource on it. And so it's going to be this one. This story here has that skull resource. This one has it as well. 1 and 2, over here, and over here. Although I've crossed off this story already, so this really doesn't matter. I also have it over here and over here. And so essentially, I'm just gonna go ahead and make the assumption that every single story that does not have that skull connected to it is not the answer. So I'm just gonna cross all of those off. So it's likely not that or that. And I'm just gonna do it for every single story that I did not circle the skull on. Awesome, so now we pretty much only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These 5 possible story options. All right, so these 2 cards are out. And now we have this one last, sorry Naveen,
no
I haven't written them down yet. And this just is telling us that these 2 cases are not in any way connected to celebrity Ike. And so it's gonna be this case over here, which is still technically a potential solution, as well as this case over here, which we already know is not the answer. So that's not really that helpful. But I'm gonna go ahead and toss that. And that is the end of that round. So we're gonna draw up to another 4. Well, actually, Naveen?
I am not going to be putting out a smiley face. I am sad face. I am not ready.
I'm sad face as well. We are not ready. We're getting closer, but we're not ready yet.
Yep.
So new 4,
you need
please?
4 cards total?
Yes, and I'm going to start the next round. And so before we continue with the round, now looking at my paper, I'm looking at all of these potential cases, which is going to be this one, here, here, and here, those 5. And now the one that is most likely going to be the solution is this case over here, this story. And the reason why is because 3 of the resources now are circled versus this one, which I was thinking about earlier, only has 2. And so this is our most likely story. And then now looking at our contacts, because these are the 3 different resources that are associated with this story, then the likelihood of Jerry actually contributing one of these resources is low, because he doesn't have any of these 3 symbols. So I'm just going to keep that circled because I'm pretty confident that that is the answer to this case, which means that our celebrity is going to be either A or U, who is Amy Albright over here, or U, who's Uma Unwin. And at this point, we don't really know much about the newspaper yet, but we're going to soon find out. And so we're going to continue with the round just like we have been doing, and then maybe fast forward a little bit to kind of show you a progression of our deduction. All right, so now we're a little bit further along in the game. We've crossed off a lot of stuff on our paper here, so I hope it's not too hard to read. So let's kind of review what we have going on here. I've pretty much narrowed down the case. We definitely know it's this now because at this point we have 4 out of the 6 resources circled. So the likelihood of that being it is like very, very high, which means our celebrity answer is going to be either Amy or Uma, A or U. Now we're going to look at the contacts area and kind of see the contacts is a little bit more difficult to decipher at this moment. We know that Leslie, who's a contact over here, is being backed by 3 of the different newspapers. So the likelihood of her involvement is very, very, very high. She's also contributing 2 out of the 3 resources that are shown on this case. If we are ever to find a clue card that crosses off either A or U for this contact, then we will probably know our celebrity answer. At this point, we don't have that information yet though. So she is still potentially affiliated with both of those celebrities. Now, what you also want to do with this contacts information is what we haven't really been talking about much yet, which is going through these lines and seeing exactly who these celebrities are connected with. Now that we've narrowed it down to 2 celebrities, we can do a little bit of that right now. And so starting with Amy is connected to Leslie because this connection is still alive. Now, if there's ever an X, which is what we've been doing throughout the game, then that would sever that connection. So right now, Amy is not connected to Jerry over here at all. In addition, if there's ever a contact who crosses off their letter, like for example, Jill over here has crossed off the A, then that means this person is also connected. And so any contacts past that person in a linear fashion, I guess, is also kind of cut off. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. But right now, we know that Amy is still connected to Leslie, as well as Vivian, Norbert, Matt, and Tim. Amy is not connected to Fred because Fred is actually just not a contact, not associated with this game anymore because he's not connected to any of these 5 celebrities. What we also want to consider is even though Leslie is contributing these 2 resources, the handshake and the police hat, we need a contact that contributes this skull symbol. And right now, the only character who's contributing a skull symbol is Vivian. So our celebrity needs to be connected to Vivian in order to be the right celebrity. if you look at Vivian's contact card over here, the U has been crossed off, which means our celebrity is most likely Amy. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Because there's nobody else who's contributing that skull resource. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and circle Amy right now. And so we have our case, we have our celebrity, and all we need is our newspaper. So if we look down at the newspaper section over here, we've taken some notes. Just to take a closer look, the Chronicle is pretty much crossed off. The Chronicle is not in the running for solutions because at the bottom right-hand corner here, which is not something we've discussed much, are these 4 different shapes. We have the triangle, square, circle, and like a diamond. These shapes pertain to the 4 categories of cases here. And so right now we have the Chronicle who's not willing to publish any case. So they're not the solution. As for the other 3 newspapers, the only newspaper that we really have a claim to right now is the Liberty Gazette, which right now is looking like the possible solution. Another way we can do some deduction is in the celebrities that they are willing to publish. Right now, all 3 of them look like they're willing to publish Amy. So we don't really have a way of narrowing that down just yet. And so because of that, we need to continue another round. I'm probably going to ask Naveen questions about the newspapers as much as possible. So it is my turn. So I'm going to ask about the Patriot Daily. Let's go with the Patriot Daily.
Okay.
You know, I'm just going to ask about all 3 of these newspapers because I need information on all of them. So the Patriot Daily, the Liberty Gazette, and the Global Sentinel. We no longer care about the Chronicle because we've eliminated that newspaper as a solution.
Yep.
Naveen, do you have anything for me?
I do. I have 3 points on 3 cards.
On 3 cards, 3 points. Okay, so I'm just gonna give, ideally you would give cards that are not gonna hopefully help, but I'm just gonna give you those 2 cards with a value of 3.
Okay.
So let's see what Naveen gave us. All right, so first card is not entirely helpful because we are done with the contacts area, but we're gonna take note of it anyway. And that's Vivian. Vivian is being backed by another newspaper as well as Bernice. And so this is just further strengthening our earlier argument that Vivian is contributing this skull resource here. So she is a very key contact in our case. Let's see what the other 2 are. Oh, here we go, newspapers. So the Patriot Daily is not interested in covering the case that is the circle as well as the diamond. And so that's not super helpful because it's just these 2 columns of cases because our case is the triangle, but it's still something. And then finally, we have the Global Sentinel and the Chronicle are not covering Amy, which is huge because that basically eliminates the Global Sentinel from our potential solutions because our celebrity is Amy. So right now, we're 50-50 on the potential newspaper. We've got the Patriot Daily as well as the Liberty Gazette. And it's your turn.
Sure.
We might want to make a guess at this point, actually, just to see, because we're so close. We're really, really close.
Okay, I'm going to want the Global Sentinel, the Liberty Gazette, and I want to know about Amy.
You want to know about Amy?
I do.
Are you listening to me?
No.
Are you cheating? And I actually don't have any cards that have to do with any of those 3 pieces of information, so Naveen gets to draw 3 cards, and I'm out of luck.
3. Yep.
I don't get to exchange cards, unfortunately.
Nope.
But now we have reached the end of the round, and you know what? I am so close to figuring out the case that I'm just gonna make a guess.
Okay.
So I'm gonna guess that the story is story number 2, which is called Waived Fine, by the way. Like the celebrity caused a traffic accident and forced somebody to take a fine. Like that is the story.
Oh, really?
These are all real stories, or not real stories, but these are all stories that have been named in the rule book. I believe that the celebrity in question here is Amy, you naughty person. And the publishing newspaper is the Liberty Gazette. And at this point, I've basically said my piece, and now I'm going to go into the rule book. And I think you would write this down. You probably wouldn't say this out loud,
Correct.
or else you'd give away information to everybody around the table.
Yep.
But then I would go in the rule book and see if I'm right. And that's it. We figured it out. That was teamwork. Thank you for helping me.
Now, in this game, obviously, you would not want to give away information that is too beneficial for your opponents. But there's a lot of different combinations and different kind of things that you can deduce just from these cards alone.
Yes, and we did showcase the 2-player variant. Now, in a solo game, you have to use an app. I just want to mention that. In higher player counts, it seems like it would be easier for you to get more information at once because you're technically you're inquiring amongst everybody around the table. And so I know that it seemed like we were taking a lot of turns, but that's because it's only you and your opponent in a 2-player game. And so if you've played Awkward Guests and played maybe the 2-player variant of that, then you'll be familiar with what we're talking about today. We do want to reiterate that while this is a case in the book, there are so many because there are 250 cards in this deck, and each case uses a combination of a large deck of cards.
Yeah, this particular case used 75 different cards, and we purposely did not say what the number is associated with this case, just in case if you want to play this game, you won't remember this.
And also, just so you know, this is considered an intro scenario. It does get harder. There's easy, I believe there's intro, very easy, there's medium, and there's hard.
The hard one, yeah.
So if this didn't seem like a challenge to you, then there are plenty of them in the rulebook.
Yeah, some of the cases might use cards to throw you off, kind of what Monique was alluding to earlier in the playthrough, that some cards may look like there's certain evidence, so you might lead down a certain pathway, which can kind of ruin your plans.
Yes. That is how you play Scandaloh. I know that there are probably bits and pieces that may seem confusing because this is definitely a deduction game that takes deduction to a new level. If you have any questions about what you saw today, how the game is played, how any of the conclusions were drawn, please feel free to leave a comment down below and we'll try to get back to you as soon as possible.
Now again, this game is coming to Kickstarter on September 14th, so if you are interested in the campaign, you can feel free to check out the link to the active campaign. We will update that as soon as we have the link as well. And of course, if you'd like to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing.
Thanks. You. Bye.